Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be there live. I'm really excited for this presentation. It's an honor to be presenting today. I just want to say thank you to the organizing committee and wish everyone at this conference the best of luck. I hope you're enjoying day 2 of the IWG World Conference. I'm Angela Ruggiero, and I'm going to hopefully teach you a little bit about unlocking the business potential of women's sports. It's an area of my life that fills me with a ton of passion, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some of the progress I've worked on at Sports Innovation Lab, my company, towards achieving gender equality in sports. I'll also be sharing some actionable insights that hopefully will close the gap for everyone at the conference, and really just focusing on the business side more than anything. So if you're a league employer, a marketer, an athlete, a media professional, anyone during this session, hopefully something will resonate with you, empower you with a little bit more confidence to know that the business of women's sports is absolutely exploding. You should be confident that there's a market for women's sports, and we just got to put some more money behind it. We got to invest a little bit more. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I got my start as an athlete, enjoyed an amazing 16-year career with Team USA playing women's ice hockey in 4 Olympics. I was fortunate enough to play actually on the first women's Olympic ice hockey team, where we won a gold medal in 1998. I was the youngest on that team, and so lucky that women's hockey was included for the first time in the Olympics. Went on to play in 3 more Olympics, winning more medals, playing more games than any other man or woman in a USA Hockey jersey. So I've learned a lot as an athlete. At some point during my career, mid-career, I said, what would it take to play in a men's professional game? How can I stretch myself, push myself? Can I break that barrier and show all those little girls out there and boys that women can play, that women deserve the chance, and hopefully be the role model that they all are craving, that the world is craving? It wasn't really a question if I had the skill. I knew I had the skill to play, but it was a question of who's going to give me that opportunity? Who's going to help me be that trailblazer? What I need to advocate for myself? How do I find an audience receptive for a woman playing technically a man's sport? So I was, again, a woman trying to break barriers, just trying to push myself, stretch myself as an athlete. Well, as women, we challenge glass ceilings and dare to be amongst the first or best to do anything to create our path. It's the only barrier really that we need to change our goals. So I just encourage all of you to don't let the task of creating a path, breaking barriers, doing something unconventional get in the way of your destination. Fight for what you want. Fight for equality. That's what I've done my whole career as an athlete and now as a businesswoman. There's going to be a lot of people saying you can't, but one of my favorite quotes in the world is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. So don't listen to those naysayers. And I'm really encouraged about the amount of content in this conference around more equality on the field, more research for female athletes, more equality in pay. But what I want to do today, again, is walk through the business side. I had that mentality as an athlete. And luckily, I had someone on my team pushing for me, my younger brother, Bill, who played professional sports as a goalie. He played goalie for professional hockey. Through him, I got an invite to play professional men's hockey on his team. And we actually became the first brother-sister duo to play professional sports. I was the first woman non-goalie to play professional men's hockey. And so lucky and blessed that I had a brother that was advocating for me. So my big takeaway is find those people that are going to support you. They're going to listen to you. We all can't do it alone. And this conference, I'm sure, has tons of trailblazers, tons of people trying to support one another, like my brother supporting me. And you can't do it alone. So keep pushing. Wish I was a part of the conversation, but I'm encouraged by hopefully what's coming out of this. Now, as an athlete, playing professional men's hockey or playing Olympic hockey, I knew intuitively that women's sports were ready to claim a bigger piece of the market. I saw that when fans actually knew we were playing in town, that they showed up. They came to games. They were excited. I knew young boys, young girls who wanted my autograph after I came home from the Olympics. They wanted more. It became clear to me that when you invest in women, they deliver an audience. Look no further than the Olympic platform that's consistently invested in women and given women almost equal representation now, driving the largest sports brand in the world. And that's 50% women. There is a massive market out there. And on the professional side or the youth side, again, I was unsettled that we haven't been investing enough on the women's side of the market. So I started a company called Sports Innovation Lab about 6 years ago in order to better understand the sports market, gather data, objective data that could essentially help us see where the puck was headed. Where is the business of sports headed? And specifically women's sports within that. What's the growth model? How do we move forward faster, quicker, with more authority? And so 2 years ago, we launched an initiative called the Fan Project, where we took our research and applied it specifically to the women's market. We were looking to set out through the Fan Project, what was the business case for women's sports? If you haven't looked at it, thefanproject.co, you could download it, you could check it out. A lot of what I'm going to be talking to today is in that report. And what did we find? Our findings said there's a new business model for the sports industry. It's called the community-based monetization model. Our data showed women's sports are primed to lean into this, and I'll get into that in a second. Fans of women's sports are early adopters. They are the most digitally savvy of all. We'll get into that today. But you got to understand their behaviors. The behaviors drive everything you should be doing, from building out women's sports or sports in general. Understand behavior. So the Fan Project, which we'll get into, really was about unlocking the business potential of women's sports. So those are some of the summary findings. If we go to the next slide here, the Fluid Fan I'm going to talk about in just 1 second. It's this new digitally savvy fan. It said through the Fan Project that you got to do 3 things differently with women. You got to produce content differently. It's not just about the stats and the scores. It's about the storytelling. We know that. Fans of women's sports love storytelling. You got to distribute in new and innovative ways. It's not just about broadcast, because look, the broadcasters aren't putting us on TV the way they should. So you got to go digital. You got to go OTT. You got to find new ways to get your content out there. And third, you got to measure success differently. We've created new ways to do just that. So let's take a step back and talk about the Fluid Fan. The Fluid Fan is a concept that my company, Sports Innovation Lab, created. And again, we're a market intelligence company. We think about the fan. We build fan intelligence and strategy and work with the biggest brands in the world, helping them acquire. We call the fan of the future this Fluid Fan. And so we're big data nerds trying to understand that consumer, that fan, in order to, again, help you and our clients drive more viewers, drive more direct to consumer, expand fan base, and maximize your value. So think about us as experts in global sports fandom and the business behind growing your sport. And so when we take a step back and think about how has the fan changed? What do we find? Well, I think, and maybe you would think, that the sports industry is pretty comfortable, probably too comfortable. While the technology has changed entire verticals like transportation, music, and entertainment, sports have mostly stayed the same. And that's because the foundation of the men's sports business model, which is primarily media rights driving revenue, is actually rising to record levels. Hundreds of billions of dollars in media rights are being secured. So there isn't much incentive to change. If you're making money on linear media rights, which most of the sports industry is, there's no incentive to change. But we all kind of know there's cracks in the foundation. And COVID certainly made the business of sports change a little differently. So here it is. When you look at viewership, linear ratings across sports, we're seeing a pretty significant decline. Looking at the top 4 broadcast networks just here in the US over the last 3 years, over a 30% decline. So sports are still trying to force paid content into a world that's shifted for free. I'm sure you can look no further than YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and other form of free content that's succeeding. Younger viewers are moving into those platforms. Think about your own consumption habits and where you gobble up sports. Leagues and teams have long relied on the diehard fan to pull them through anything. But even these fans are now only spending 10% of their free time with their favorite team. Netflix is competition now. Every kind of entertainment is now competition for sports. The diehard fans for some leagues are literally dying out. Because when you think of the age of fans, young fans just aren't showing up in a way they used to in sport. We're all trying to understand the Gen Z consumer because they don't act like their parents. It's kind of confusing. We can't just sell sponsorship and linear rights and tickets to grow our fan base. We got to think outside of the box because fans and consumers themselves have evolved. But we believe there's a path to growth. We think this fan evolution is absolutely the best thing that could happen to sports and women's sports specifically, because there's a new fan that represents growth for the industry. And I talked about it before, but I'll talk about it now again. We call that fan the fluid fan. And there are three core tenets of the fluid fan. One, they're open to change. They're not just going to follow one team, one athlete, one gender. They're empowered to choose because of the technology platforms in front of them. You can choose any sport, that long tail, which includes women's sports. Yes. And they're constantly evolving. When you think you understand them and you're helping them, they're evolving, just like we're all evolving as people. So again, this fluid fan has gone through various evolutions. We start with the age of the local fan. And it really comes down to technology. How has technology changed fandom? These local fans back in the day had one team, literally, and they were siphoned off by geography. You're born into your allegiance, your local football club, your local netball club, whatever was local is who you followed. But then came broadband and access to global streams, giving us access to an entire world that they may not know even existed. And so again, think about the advent of satellite communications, globalization. Now you can be a fan of anything everywhere. And fandom was about reach. Every single sports property is just, we need to be global. We need to be bigger. We need to be everywhere. But we're now in the age of the fluid fan. And again, COVID absolutely changed everything for the sports industry. Now it's about transmedia. It's about co-watching. It's about consuming sports on all different kinds of platforms, both long form and short form. Viewing highlight clips, creating content. You're not just a passive spectator anymore. You're a lean-in spectator. All of this is absolutely setting up the women's sports market for success, where you change allegiances, where you're following players and passions and values. It's about your contextual identity. That's a fluid fan. And the market evolution of the fluid fan, just really quickly, what this slide roughly represents is you used to just make your money off of tickets. In the age of the global fan, again, it was tickets, sponsorship, linear. In the age of the fluid fan, it's a diversification of revenue, which means a diversification of how you bring people in to your sport and how you entertain them and engage them. So in the age of the fluid fan, you can touch them in more ways, you can engage them in more ways, you can monetize them in more ways, which means as the women's sports community, we can do more to connect to this consumer. And it does not have to look like the men's model. You don't have to lift and shift the men's model of just selling sponsorship and linear and tickets and some merch on the side. The men's side of the market is absolutely shifting, trying to figure this out. That's where women can leapfrog. So again, the business model, women's sports, and sports is shifting dramatically overnight. And why is that? Well, our company studies behaviors. If you can actually understand how fans behave, you'll know how to reach them and you'll know how to make money off of them. Sports Innovation Lab has researched fan behaviors, or fan behavior experts. And we were curious, who are the most fluid fans? Where's the puck headed? Who could we identify that have these really interesting fan behaviors? Drum roll, please. The earliest adopters of all sports fans are, no surprise, women's sports fans. They're the most fluid, digitally savvy, innovative fans in all. Now, we don't pat ourselves on the back too soon. Fans of women's sports display these fluid fan behaviors 4 years before the traditional fan, because you can't be a lazy women's sports fan. You can't just turn on the TV or have water cooler talk and get sports thrown in your face. That's the men's side of the market. It's hard not to be a men's sports fan in our society, but it's really hard to be a women's sports fan. So in order to be a women's sports fan, you're downloading the app. You're going online. You're trying to find your players. You're following them on social media. You're actually doing more digitally. You're doing more with technology because it's hard to be a women's sports fan. And that's actually really interesting. Again, 4 years ahead of the market, the women's sports market is today, because you can't be a lazy women's sports fan. And again, why is that so important? If you look at these early adopters, it's only 1 to 10% of your fan base. They can drive 50 to 80% of your revenue. Again, these leading consumers that know how to download things and purchase things and buy things and be more invested in your team, in your league, in your sport. They're digitally savvy. You got to really hook to that because you can drive more revenue. Again, where women's sports has a big opportunity. So through the fan project over the last 2 years, we said, what if we take that interesting insight? You have this digitally savvy consumer, and let's actually go a bit deeper. So we launched the largest observational study ever of the spending habits of women's sports and learn everything about them to learn how to monetize and scale women's sports. So where do fans of women's sports spend money? You got to follow the money in this industry. And if we can show that this is a very deep consumer spending more money, we believed that the rest of the market will say, we should be investing more. Yeah, maybe their numbers are small today, but guess what? They spend more money. That's the big aha. And why? Why does this digitally savvy consumer spending more money? Why are people doing these different things? Well, let's just take a step back at a macro level. Why women's sports today? Well, we're having this conference because society has changed. A lot of people are now asking, why aren't we investing in the women's game? Why don't we have a women's arm? Why is it unequal? That wasn't always the case. Technology has enabled us, as we just walked through. Technology has enabled you to follow your favorite athlete, follow your favorite sport, be online. Again, you can follow any sport from anywhere in the world now. Technology has enabled that shift. The gatekeeper is no longer just the broadcaster. And athletes as entertainers, female athletes, we all know this, are more vulnerable. They're more authentic. They're more themselves. Brands love that. And by virtue of that, consumers love it. Consumers love just hearing those stories. And that's what today's fluid fan wants. They want that authentic consumer. So massive macro shifts are going on in the market. And another positive point, so you have these macro shifts happening, these early adopters, these digitally savvy consumers. Well, guess what? They may be a smaller subset of the larger market. However, women's sports leagues are acquiring and retaining fans at a rate that's nearly double of the general sports fan. Let me repeat that. We're acquiring fans, which is what everyone, growth. I just want to grow my fan base. And keeping those fans in our funnel at 2 times the rate of the general sports fan. That is massive. This is a massive number. I hope we all repeat, because you can be proud that you say, look, even though we have a smaller number, they're spending more and we're acquiring and retaining them at twice the rate of the general sports fan. So women's sports is on the upward trajectory, while the general sports fan is contracting. Again, you saw that decline in viewership. The general sports fan has more option. And guess where a lot of them are going? Boom, into the women's market. We're finally giving them somewhere to go. So this 40% higher growth score, that's something, if I'm an investor, I want to put my money behind. Place a bet on an asset with a 40% higher growth rate than a general sports fan. So sports in general, harder to acquire and retain fan, but women's sports is a subset of that market. Again, twice the rate, 40% higher growth score. Hopefully you're all taking pictures of this. You're going to share with anyone at home. So why is the women's sports market so incredibly valuable? Well, they're early adopters who spend more, and they're fiercely loyal to brands who support the sports they love. Again, early adopter. Any marketer, any business person is going to go, that digitally savvy fan is going to make 50 to 80% of my budget. They're spending more and they're loyal. Have you ever had a brand sponsor a women's sports product? Our data showed, not just intuitively, our data showed that when a brand supports a women's sports product, those fans are more likely to actually buy that product than, another sponsor on the men's side. No, these fans are loyal. They love the brands that put money in. Again, we have tons of data to show that. So again, let's talk a little bit about why these fans are so valuable. When you're out in the market, whether you're a broadcaster, a property yourself, you work on an agency, or you're with a brand, fans of women's sports went cashless first. A really cool, again, nugget that shows us that they're early adopters. They're going to do things differently. They were paying each other digitally 5 years before the general sports fan caught up. Again, that's an interesting consumer that I want to tap into. So they're cashless first. They create more. And again, the whole industry, we support the entire sports ecosystem, working with some of the biggest brands in the world. We're telling everyone, help your fans create more content. Lean in, give them something to do. Don't just let them be passive. We actually saw in our data they outspend on digital creator tools, again, which allows fans to become extensions of your marketing. These fans of women's sports are creating things. They're buying those tools. They're doing more. They're leaning in. They're more digitally savvy. Again, a depth to this fan that the general men's market does not have. They actually stream more. Again, talked about this before. You can't be a lazy women's sports fan. You can't just turn on the TV, unfortunately, today and watch women's sports. You got to find it. So again, they're streaming more. So we looked at the over-the-top marketplace and saw that in the years that networks showed more women's sports coverage, they saw an increase in fans on their platform. Surprise, surprise. There's a market that's hungry and will download and spend money. So if you build the content house, they will come for it. Again, really interesting behavior that if you're a savvy marketer, you're going to pay attention to. And they use innovative technology to do things differently. Who's heard of the company Airbnb? Guess what? Fans of women's sports use Airbnb 64% more than traditional hotel chains. Again, they're doing things differently. They're expressing these really interesting behaviors. What I'm laying out for you right now is how we're different. And these are the nuggets that I believe and we believe at Sports Innovation Lab are gold. When you're thinking about, we're not going to reach the amount of volume. We will over time. But for now, these consumers are valuable. They're spending more. They're doing things like downloading apps and going to Airbnb, and they're breaking from the traditional mold. So really valuable consumer here. Guess what? They also spurge on luxury. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Fans of women's sports spend nearly $2,000 more per fan on Louis Vuitton. This is a tremendous opportunity for luxury brands to be showing up and sponsoring athletes, sponsoring teams and leagues. Again, if you're one of these properties, you're going to want to partner with a luxury brand. You're going to want to do something again to get more luxury brands to see. Don't go sponsor the men's side of the market. Let's be smart. Let's go to where they're actually spending more money, $2,000 more. Another example, again, I'm throwing them at you. Hopefully you're writing them down. If you're part of the sponsorship team in your property, you're like, whoa, fans of women's sports are spending more on auto brands. Okay. We all know women hold the purse strings. They're the ones that are spending the money. That, again, follow the money. And they're purchasing automotive. Again, you see it year over year. They're significantly spending more per fan in the auto brand category. So again, an interesting nugget here. After CarMax sponsored the WNBA Women's League here, basketball league here in the US, we isolated our data and saw a significant rise in fans of women's sports spending on CarMax versus other auto brands. So again, we just have the purse strings. If we can isolate that and again differentiate, yeah, we might have less, but these consumers are worth more. It could help your pitch. So what about brands that spend in both? What about the brands who spend and sponsor general men's sports and women's sports? So Adidas, DoorDash, Nike, State Farm, to name a few. Well, we looked at the rate at which fans were purchasing these products from these brands, and fans of women's sports buy more of these brands' products than the general sports fan. They spend more money. Again, the rate of purchase for someone buying Adidas and DoorDash is significantly higher, due to almost 30%, right? So you're a more valuable consumer, okay? So again, yes, they might have scale, but this is a higher value consumer. And then why are we giving all these data points? Well, it's about the spend. They're going to watch more in a different way. They're going to spend more, but it's not just about the money. It's more than just winning. When I was an athlete, I kept saying, why can't you just put us in prime time? Give us that good slot where we're going to get that viewership. And a lot of today's fans feel that same way. They want more equitable treatment. They want the same kinds of resources in the weight room as the men, in the court as the men. How much are they getting paid? We're trying to tap into this. It's more than just winning. And all of this, again, translates into sponsorship. These fans are spending more with these purpose-driven brands. Because as a consumer, as a fan, we all probably buy things that are more economically good for the environment or aligned to our values. Remember, fluid fans vote with their wallets, vote with their values. So I'm probably, I know in my own life, not buying certain products or services that don't align to who I am. I'm boycotting brands that don't align with my values. And we're seeing that in the sports industry. The brands that come in, again, fluid fans and fans of women's sports are actually spending more money with these brands that align to who they are, their values. And again, brands, what can you do today? You can advocate, you can sponsor. Recently, Ally, who's a big sponsor of the National Women's Soccer League here in the US, it's our professional league. They said, you're not in prime time. Guess what? We're going to front the money to move this championship game to prime time. And we got almost 1 million viewers tuned in overnight because it went from being in the middle of the night when no one could find it to prime time on one of the biggest networks here in the US called CBS. So if you're in brand, again, my recommendation, you should be investing and sponsoring because they're going to spend more money. They're more loyal. If your brand aligns with their values, they're going to be loyal for life. And you're also going to enable, again, the properties you work with to do things differently and have more confidence. You should have more confidence. There's growth here. So again, recapping, to capitalize on these fan behaviors, we must shift how women's sports are produced, distributed, and measured. Don't just produce women's sports in the same old way. We want more storytelling. It's not just about the stats. Give us the behind the scenes. Give us that F1 docu-series where I can know everything about those athletes. The market is hungry for it. Don't just distribute on TV and wait for those big rights that might not happen in the near future. Go to non-traditional streams. Seek out your OTT partners, your Twitches and your TikToks and any platform, again, that's going to allow you to reach that consumer in a new and innovative way, and measure success differently. Again, that growth rate we talked about before. This market is doing things really, really for the future fan. And if you could tap into those unique metrics, you can tell a different story and therefore sell more product. Again, tapping into women's sports. We got to just keep telling the narrative. We got to do it differently. We got to think about the Drive to Survive, a series that I know you all saw. And fans of women's sports want to represent their community. Again, there's an increase for licensed product. If you're not selling a licensed product and you hold the keys to your property, you should be thinking about products. Again, you may not be watching women's sports. That doesn't mean you're not going to wear women's sports. It reflects who you are. So build products, build licensed products, create partnerships. If you can't create those yourself, but that's a massive merchandise is a massive opportunity. Again, women's sports crave this merchandise. In our data, there's a massive shortage. We're producing not enough, and we're always not having enough inventory. You can't satisfy the market. They're really hungry for merch because they want to wear their heart on their sleeves. They want to wear their passion of women's sports on their sleeves. So get more creative with your rights, your marks. If you create the merchandise, fans will purchase it. I think it's one of the easiest opportunities to drive more revenue in a quick way and build out a better fan. All right, so I'll give you a couple points here. A lot of skeptics. Yeah, women's sports, it's growing, I'll do it because it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of skeptics. All right, let's hit them where it hurts. Yeah, it's all about women. No, fans of women's sports, and our data showed it's a roughly 45 to 55 split of males versus females. People want women's sports, men and women. Everyone wants it. Again, we're roughly in the middle. This isn't just about girls or mothers and their daughters. This is about the market saying, that's a great athlete. I want to watch that awesome competition. So again, a pretty equal split in terms of our data and the numbers of people that are saying they want more or they're currently buying more. Number two, they'll say, well, there's no scale. Yeah, okay. This is about depth over breadth. But our growth score, again, you can reference, we're growing quicker. We're acquiring and retaining fans at a 40% high rate than the general sports fan. So it's a growth market. Those are the two things, hopefully. This isn't about just a numbers game. This is about a depth game. Do you want the right fans in your ecosystem? Do you want the right fans to be aligned to the brands that you're partnering with? So tell the skeptics, hey, we're on a trajectory. So if I can summarize, there's a lot in here. And again, I'm happy to talk at length if we can connect offline with any of you. But my summary slide here, fans of women's sports are the most valuable fan of all. They're the most digitally savvy. They're the most fluid. They're technologically advanced. Again, you can't be a lazy sports fan. So they're a very valuable consumer. They're watching longer. They're spending more. It's a really cool consumer. Now, brands that get that invest in women's sports are rewarded. Our data shows they're going to spend more money with you. So if you had to pick between the men and the women, I think I'd pick the women because they're going to actually spend money. We get a lot of questions with brands. Well, what's my return on investment? We'll put it in the women's market, loyal fan base. That's like, thank you for supporting women's sports. They'll spend more with you. And our data, again, proves, and you can reference Sports Innovation Lab. Hey, it's not me. It's these data nerds over there that are studying this market. This is a viable, growing marketplace. The data proves objectively that women's sports is on the rise. There is an avid market out there that wants more. Again, when we started the FAM project, I knew there was a market, but I said, well, who's going to listen to Angela? Of course I'm going to say that because I was a female hockey player, and everyone, in this room is advocating that we should be investing more in women's sports. I said, what can the data say? You can't argue with data, objective data. So you can feel confident today that our data and the business model behind that data says that there is a massive market that's been untapped, that's been underinvested. But if you peel back the onion, these fans are avid and loyal and want more. And we just need more properties and brands and media partners to invest in women's sports, a massive business potential. Yes, it's the right thing to do. Yes, we should have already been doing it. But if you want to appeal to not just the heart, but to the head, lean into, it's good for business. It's good for your bottom line. And the whole globe should be investing in women's sports as a market opportunity. If you do that, I think, again, the business will rise, women will get paid more, there'll be more visible role models, we'll have more girls and boys looking up to women, signing up for sports, and we'll open up the marketplace to 50% of the world. That is a massive opportunity. So if you want to learn more, download our research on thefamproject.co. Again, thefamproject.co. We have lots and lots of pages on this if you want to learn more about that, or go to our website, sportsilab.com. I'm Angela Ruggiero, again, the CEO and co-founder of Sports Innovation Lab, a 4-time Olympian in ice hockey. I love each and every one of you for what you're doing to advocate more opportunities for women in sport, whether that's on the field or off the field. Hopefully today's presentation gave you a little bit of confidence. We're studying the business side, and there's a big, big opportunity out there. We just need more people to see that. And hopefully our data today and insights provided some of that. And again, just want to say thank you for having me. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep on the good fight. There'll be you're setting the trend for the next generation. I think I did that as a hockey player, and I'm so proud of what each and every one of you are doing in your own respective worlds to pass it on to the next generation. Thank you.